and welcome to the School of Cloud. I'm Jeff Williams, and this week we're learning Intro to Cloud. We also have today Elaine Chan, who studies over at Western Michigan University, and a guest speaker, Kristen Kinnear-Ohlmann, and we're happy that you're here. So actually, we're going to jump right to it. Kristen, take it away.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and share my screen. If I can click the button. All right. So you should be over, and I won't be able to see you very well, so you know. If you head over to where you've enrolled in the, I'm going to roll that back up, Create and Manage Cloud Resources Quest. We're going to scroll down till we reach, and you can see I've already actually finished this one, Getting Started with Cloud Shell and Gcloud. So let's go ahead and click that. And I will try to bounce back and forth and make sure there aren't any questions. And obviously, there is also Jeff and Elaine to help for those that are here live with us. Excuse me. So I'm going to go from what I know and what I've already learned in the Cloud Jam. If you've had any experience with Google Cloud, you can do a lot of things just from the UI. So if you wanted to spin up a resource, a new server, if you're going to work with BigQuery and create some buckets of data, you can do all those just by clicking on things. But there is also the opportunity to do that through Cloud Shell. And there usually in these labs, there are the opportunities to do some of that work at the Cloud Shell. So this gets you oriented to what it looks like, where you go to open it, what it should look like when it opens so that you have the proper access, and then working some with the commands. So before we go ahead and start the lab here on the left, we're going to hold off on that for a moment. There are instructions at the top that are really helpful so we make sure that we can work on the lab and not reach the end of the time without being able to complete it. So as I said, we'll be practicing those commands at the shell level that we might also be able to click buttons for or icons. And we're going to connect to the compute services. And if you have some familiarity with editors, I'll tell you that I've always been afraid of Vim, but I'm pretty sure I used Nano when we did this, and we will be led through this by the instructions, so there's no need to worry. So before we get started, you are on the lab here. When we do get started and we click the Start button, the thing that I always remember from my first Cloud Jam is Elaine saying, make sure you open this in an incognito window. I happen to be in incognito already, but I'll probably do it again just to be on the safe side. And that ensures that when we're working on the lab, we're actually working with the credentials that have been assigned by Quick Labs. So that gives us the access and all the proper appropriate permissions that we wouldn't have as just ourselves logged into Google. So we'll have the username, usually that will populate for you. You'll want to copy that password just like you saw Jeff do with the code before we went ahead and opened things, just get that copied. Also, the project ID. I don't know if we need that for this lab, we may, but just know that it's there in the future. There are labs that want you to use your project ID for doing some of the work of the lab. And I think the rest of these steps go through this. If you happen to accidentally get in there as yourself, make sure you're using the account that's assigned when we hit the Start Lab. And I think that's about it. It shows you how to activate the Cloud Shell, but I believe we're also going to be doing that anyway when we get there. So any questions before we hit the Start Labs? Yes. Hey, it's very helpful, Elaine. So we're going to go ahead now. We got 45 minutes. We ought to be able to get it done without too many problems. And plus with Jeff and Elaine helping, we'll be able to keep people moving along in case you get stuck with something. The one thing I will highlight again before the lab is if everything happens properly, and I always look for this when we do anything that has to do with Cloud Shell here in Quick Labs, you're going to see some lovely yellow bits showing your project ID, which is going to be Quick Labs GCP, some sort of a GUID. If you don't, there are ways to fix it, and that's probably what we'll have Jeff and Elaine help with. So I'd say when we get started and we get to that point and we open up the shell, look for the little yellow pieces. If they're there, you're good to go. If not, then we'll have to get it fixed so you can keep working under the proper permissions. So go ahead, and we're gonna, I'm not a robot either. Uh-oh, motorcycle pieces. I don't know what y'all got, but that's what I got. Oh boy, and vehicles. I guess I'm not a robot either. So as Jeff was saying, if you have been working in Quick Labs, you're going to see a use subscription. If not, I think this says use 1 credit, which is what this lab costs, and you should have by coming through that access link. So I'm going to use subscription. And it's going to think. All right, so first, let's go ahead. This is where we're going to do that incognito, is the open Google console. I guess I can just open in a new tab because I'm already in incognito, but you can see you might have the open and incognito window. I'm going to copy that password. So you can see mine came up with a student ID, which should match my username. So I can hit next. If not, you can still go back and copy out that student ID as well. And I've copied my password so that from here. So that's the one I'm entering in. And if you've done all those steps, I don't have permissions. Oh, because look, it's me. That's not right. Let's switch to my student instead. Must be logged in somewhere. So you should be on the platform. Let's just sign some things out. Let's try this again. I see I'm on the demo God's bad list. Signed out. Okay. I'm going to go back. Let's try that again. Make sure I'm a student. I'm that student there. That should be the right one. Hopefully this time I have the right permissions.
I think the trick is to have the lab in the non-incognito window and then do the actual cloud platform work in an incognito window. So that way your one is in a regular browser and the student account that they're giving you is in the incognito, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I signed in here first.
Yeah, at this point it'll be fine because this lab I don't think uses any of the tools that are really tough to switch users on. Like when you get to the ones about dialog flow, if you are trying to use a secondary account, then it gets a little tougher. Or some of the third-party things that they bought, like that tool they bought from Trifacta, that one, the cloud, what is it, Cloud Data Prep? No, Cloud, anyway.
Sounds familiar. So you didn't see in mine, but you will likely see in yours, there are some permissions things that pop up, some windows saying I'm in the United States or whatever the region is, allow me into this area. So you're going to get to the Google Cloud Platform landing page. We've got all of our stuff here, and we're not going to use anything but what we need, which will actually be the Google Cloud shell. So let's go ahead back to our instructions. And setup is just what we were looking at. So let's go ahead and look at task 1. And so this describes how the servers are provisioned around the world that we would be reaching out to. And hopefully I get this right. The big segments are not, the regions are the smaller segments. The zone, the region is the bigger segment. The zone is the smaller one. So region, Western US, actually should come to Central because I think they often bounce off Central. Region of Central United States, and then there are zones that can be chosen from. Now, this is informational for you when you're doing your own projects. In these labs, they'll say, please use this region, this zone for the exercise we're going through. So the Quick Lab will guide us through that. But normally, if you were, let's say, in Western Europe or Eastern Asia, you'd want to pick that region because that's where your computer is closest to, and pick a zone that's as close to your area as possible. So you're able to leverage the speed on that. We'll go ahead and scroll down. So this would give us, they haven't actually gotten us into the Cloud Shell yet, but they've asked us to look at some of these things. So let's see here. Actually, we will go back up because I think maybe they, in this particular lab, intended for us to go try that out. So let me roll back up here before we look at any of that. So we are going to use this part. If you wanted to follow along, this part starts here after the sign in. So you can locate on the lab page after a few moments, the Cloud Console opens. So that's where we just were. Quick over there, quick. So this is everything we wanted to see. They're showing you that you can move that menu out of the way with the hamburger menu. If you choose to do that, it gives you more area to work in. So now we're going to go ahead and activate the Cloud Shell so we can go ahead and start with our tasks. So when you switch back over to the Cloud Console, there's a little button up here, looks like a little terminal sort of thing. It's right next to the search, and that's what we're going to click on. So mine does, I can't see my search because it's over here, but here's my little terminal button, Activate Cloud Shell. So go ahead and do that. And you'll see that it's getting ready. It gives me some information. I'm just going to make this a little bigger because I'm working off my sort of small laptop. And as I mentioned before, if you're seeing this yellow right here with the quick labs and that GUID, that means that all of your access is transferred over into the Cloud Shell appropriately. You're using your student account. You're going to be able to follow along with the exercises. If you don't see the yellow, please reach out to Jeff or Elaine to help you get to the point where you can see this yellow, because you're going to need that for us to be able to walk through the exercises. And that information is here as well, as we had gone over. And we can look at what our active account name is with this command. And I will say, when I do this as a student, I type these because I'm like, I can type, but sometimes it is helpful to copy it. That way you don't type it incorrectly and you're able to get to see what you need to see. So I've gone ahead and copied that command for Gcloud auth list, and Gcloud is the way we invoke everything we do here in this shell. You're going to get this at least once where you're saying, am I allowed to make these API calls on your behalf? Absolutely. Please do that. So if you've done that, you're going to see this same student account that you saw up there in the console when we started, or in the activation console when we started working on this lab. And then there's the instructions if for some reason things weren't working for you. So you should see your student account, and we can keep going from there. So now we'll go ahead back into our regions and zones, because the first thing that we're going to go ahead and copy and paste and run is to see what we're set to right now, the default region and zone. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And Elaine or Jeff, feel free to jump in at any time if I need anything corrected. So you can see the first command went ahead and ran for me. The second one I had to press enter. So looks like I am not yet set, and that may be part of what we're doing. At least I hope that it is. But that does give you the information. So there it is right there. Means no default zone or region is set. And that makes sense, right? We're using a student account. We just spun this up. We're going to have to go ahead and do that work. So here we are. We're going to go ahead and identify our default region and zone. So we're going to go ahead and copy this project ID. They would like us to use that. I'm a fan of the old Windows notepads. That's where I'm going to stick mine. So that you can either find that in the quick labs near your username and password. That is also in the shell as well, right here. So either place you'd like to get that, I like that because I can copy and I don't have to try to scan my mouse across that. So in this step 2, we're going to copy this command, but before you paste it in, you might want to do this on some kind of a text editor first. That project ID, you're going to replace it right here where it says your project ID. So from angle bracket to angle bracket, we're going to cut that out. So I'm just going to grab that over here to my notepad. I'm going to do that very thing. And you can go ahead and grab that command and paste it over here. It did a whole bunch of stuff that I've now forgotten how to scroll up on, but it gives you a bunch of information. Let's actually just make the page bigger. You can see we've got some GPUs. That's the things that actually run things. Got some IP addresses. Let's see what they tell us in the lab. Oh, it says I have to find my default zone and region. So I might have to go looking for that. I did once look up how I could get scrolling through here, but now I'm going to forget where it is. I think I can page up it. I have to make this bigger. Oops, it didn't really help me make it bigger, did it? I don't know, Jeff or Elaine, can you advise me how to scroll this so I can get that information? I know it's at the top. I know I looked it up once, but now I can't quite remember what it is.
Run the command again, but at the end of that command, just the pipe is the one above the enter key. If you hit shift and then that up and down character, and then put head, H-E-A-D, that'll get you the first 10 lines. And then just hit enter, you'll see what happens.
Perfect.
So there, it'll just show you the first 10 lines. You can maybe get what you need from in there.
That's exactly it. They asked us to look for our default zone and our default region. Thank you, Jeff. I'll have to remember that one because I did look up how to scroll once and then I forgot it. So if you need to do that, if you're like me and you're on a laptop and don't have a mouse because it hurts my hands, go ahead and use that pipe with the head to get to the top because we'll have this information. And let's see what they want us to do with that. I think we're going to need to copy it. Exactly. So right here, we're going to have it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and copy it out so I've got it available. I don't think I need this SSH key, but I'm going to copy it anyway, just to be on the safe side. A little bit bigger because I know that I will need that in a moment. So let's go ahead and see what our commands are. So the first thing they want us to do is to make a variable so that we're not going to have to keep typing in our project ID all the time. So go ahead and copy that command. I know mine is way here at the top, so I'm going to just keep using my notepad for this purpose. Remember to take out 2 angle brackets as well. So it should look like that. Go ahead and run that. So now we will have our project ID set. And then the information that you saw when we ran the command to say what our current setup was, our current compute information, you're going to get that zone information from there and replace that as well. Go ahead and do that piece. My zone is the US Central 1A. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that and replace all that. I'm going to run that command as well. I'm going to move this over here. All right, so we want to make sure that those values are set. And of course, they've helped us with that. So you can go ahead and copy these. It's going to print out the current value of these 2 variables, which if you got them all set correctly, are going to reflect your project ID. Again, that's here on this console, and the zone that you got from the output of the compute command. So let's check and make sure mine look good. There's my Quick Labs account, and then there's my zone. All right. We haven't gotten a chance yet to get anything that Google has scored us on, but be aware you've got your beautiful little tab over there tracking us through our lab here. So the first thing we're going to do is create a virtual machine, so that server in the cloud that we get to use. And if you look and see here in this command, you can see now why we have these variables set up, because, hey, I don't have to remember what my zone is. My zone is set. I'm going to reference it with the $zone. So you're going to be able to go ahead right away and copy this, where it's going to create an instance for you. It's going to call it GCE Lab 2. And this is the same sort of thing like you might have to pick if you were setting these up within the actual interface. It's going to just go ahead and say, I know what machine I want. It's an N1 standard 2, which I think is dual core, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. So this is a nice way, like if you know exactly how you want to set it up, you don't need to go and toggle all the choices within the UI. You can just go ahead and write a Gcloud compute instances command. So go ahead and copy that now and run that within the shell. Go ahead and spin this up for us. Now, the one benefit you don't get from this is seeing like the thing spinning around and you know it's doing some work for you. So we're just going to trust it. There we go. So look right there. The name is the GCE Lab 2. Here's my zone, US Central, and I can still see that somewhere here, Central 1A. The machine, the N1 Standard 2. The IPs that are assigned to it, and hey, it's up and running right away. Great. So we have some information here from the Quick Labs. So compute allows you to manage those compute engines. That was that upper left quadrant that Jeff had on his slide of spinning up machines when you need them. None of the storage stuff, none of the querying stuff, none of the machine learning AI. The, hey, I need a machine to do some work. Please spin one up. Creating the new instance with the given name, the type of machine, so only using the amount of machine power that you need for the work you're going to do, and that zone, right, the closest to your personal computer where you're starting this work. So now we get to check. Go ahead and click this blue button. If you've done it all and it's showing up and it's running, it's going to say you're good to go. I am good to go. But before we move on, and this is something that I have to get better at as a person, and I know Elaine has also highlighted to us, when we can, if we want to get to that information, like I just want to understand what this is. I know I'm typing it blindly. What does this mean to me? You've got help on this, and I think you can just do Gcloud, the thing you're doing help. This one's going to go all the way into the what is it that I need to do if I create instances. So we're going to go ahead and just do a quick look at that just for information. So at any time on this shell, you can go ahead and do your -- help and get some information. So I'm just hitting the enter key to kind of scroll through, and you can see there's just a lot of, and this is just on that instance create command. So any command that you encounter in these quick labs or out in the world, you can do this very same thing, and you can press Q to quit to get back out of that. So that's our help information. They're actually going to go ahead and have us look at some of these commands now. So remember, they all start with Gcloud. Hello, Gcloud. We'd like to do some things. So let's start with this first one. It is actually a similar help command. So let's see how that looks to us. And you can see all it's asking us to do is, I just want to know what Gcloud is, please. Help. So it gives a nice brief summary of what help is available for you on this particular command. And you can choose from those. And then you can do a Gcloud, I think, with the information. I'm going to go ahead and do it. We'll see if I'm correct. So like here is where to go. Here's compute. Can I ask it what compute is? I can. So that'll get me just this one, along with any of the information we might want. And there's a lot there, so we're just going to go ahead and quit out of that. But this allows you to kind of go through and get some help. Obviously, you can Google as well, but you can also do it straight here from the Cloud Shell terminal as well. take a quick look at the other command they'd like us to do, which is the Gcloud config help. So telling us how we can set our configuration, and we did look at some of that earlier as well. And so you can follow along with the examples. A lot of good information there. So if you ever find you need some assistance and you want to just keep going ahead and typing from here, make sure to remember your -- help. If you want to see everything, you can always start with just the -H to get that compact version to begin with. All right. Oh, and here, in fact, looks like they're going to have us do this a third way. So this is more long detailed help. Let's just take a quick peek at that. So many ways to get help here directly from the terminal. And then there's some flags that you can dig into on your own time. So first, we're going to look at the configurations we have in this student environment. So go ahead and copy and paste that command. Switched out to the bigger shell. So here it looks like I could screen read. Got some update checks. Here's some readouts. Here's my account. They're not going to look at any usage reporting. And there's my project. And I'm in the shell. So some helpful information there, what's going on with me in this shell right now. Here's all the properties and settings. There they all are. So if you wanted to look at a specific one or work with it, there it is. And we can see all the components. So let's see what they put in the lab for us. So this would have been done by Quick Labs when we set this up. So here's some things we've got here. We can do something extra with Python. I see Minikube if you want to work with containers. I'm not going to try to scroll up because I don't know how to do that without my scroll wheel, but you get a list of that information. You can probably do that cool head command too, now that we know that. Let's see, big query command line tool. Excellent. So they have a lot of stuff. So I got to learn how to scroll instead. So if you have something you know you want to use, you can install or remove it here at the command line as well. All right. So we are, in fact, going to do that right now. So Gcloud Interactive, so we can work directly within, trying to remember because we just did that, to be able to do the work you need to do. That's what I'm going to say. Inline help snippets and drop-down menus. So that actually, I remember this now, it allows you to pick from options, so you don't have to try to remember things. So first, we're going to go ahead and use this command line to actually install the thing we're going to pick from. So go ahead and run that. And that just says, let me in, allow me to install this developer kit. All right, so that should have been pretty quick for you. And now we'll actually install or enable that interactive mode. So it looks like this is still in test because we got the beta, but they said we could, so we're going to. All right, and it says, let us know if something's wrong. So we'll wait till we get back to our prompt. Okay, oh, it says, just go ahead and do it. Well, let's go ahead and do what they're asking us to do. So when we're in interactive mode, press tab to complete. And if a drop-down appears, we can press tab to move through the list and then press spacebar when we've got our choice. So let's see, do I have my virtual machine information? Because I see there is that. I'm just going to grab that. I don't think I grabbed that when we started. Okay, so here we are. I don't think it's that. Jeff, can you assist me here on getting that virtual machine information? Oops, sorry, I'm gonna move that out of the way. Because I know you need to have an actual name on that.
Sure. So where did you Where'd you get stuck?
Right here on the compute instances describe with your VM.
Oh, so when you ran, let's see. So when you ran those commands, you because you can't scroll up.
Right. So I probably can't get it out of here. What should I do as
right now you're in the help, right?
Yep.
So you're going to want to leave the help. So the F9 to leave it looks like. If that doesn't work for you, you could do Control C. Okay, good.
Yep.
Now hit the up arrow a few times until you can find a command that's going to print out the list of the servers you've got. Now,
like that one maybe config list, or are we actually at the?
well, maybe compute list. Yeah. See if that'll work for you.
Perfect. Instances list.
Compute instances list. There you go. That'll get you a list of all the instances you've created.
Perfect. Oh, so this must be our GCE lab 2, because that's what we created back in the other command.
Yeah.
That's our virtual machine. Perfect. See, I'd already forgotten that.
And you've got that thing there that shows that you're sharing your screen. On the right-hand edge of it, you could hit that hide, and then that'll go away, and then it won't be in the. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. So now that I remember that this is our virtual machine, I'm going to go ahead and add that in, and I have to go back to my interactive. So I have to go back. You all probably are still there, because once we get back to that command line, I'm going to paste that. Let's do that. Hey, look at that instance name. This is what this is, and that is true. So, and then we can link right out to Google, which is very helpful. So let's see what they asked us to do that. It gave us some information, and we did see already, like you saw me quit. We got help on, we got the context. Let's see what that does. Oh, that put that back. I'm going to do the F8. So it takes me into the help. So we've got a lot of interesting interactive things we can do. You see what happens if I tab up arrow. That's what I got. Did I mean that? Yeah, that's what I want. Hey, look at that. So look at all this information we have and all the stuff that's available to this machine that we spun up. So that's another helpful resource. I'm going to go ahead and quit out of that. I know it told me the broken pipe. That's because, again, laptop, weird shift stuff. Or you can do exit right out of there. All right, I know we're running out of time, so we're going to go ahead and go to task 3. And look here, it helped me out and told me, hey, you're in GCE lab 2. Excellent. So let's go ahead and connect this with SSH. That will help us so we don't have to figure out how to map instances with IP addresses, which I like. There will be some outputs. We'll just look real quick here. It'll ask us to generate a key, and we're going to have it do that for us. And it looks like we can leave the passphrase empty, and we'll press enter twice. So let's go ahead and copy that command. Indeed, I'm going to continue. I'm going to have an empty passphrase. That's that enter twice. There is our RSA that we've gotten created for us. That's it. All I want to do is hit exit. It actually exited out for us. So don't hit exit because we don't want to go out of the shell just yet. I think they have a couple more things for us to do. All right. So we're going to go look at our home directory, which we're not sitting in now. It's very common if you've used any kind of Linux, Unix, what have you in the past. You always start out somewhere other than home. And this is where we're going to get into some of these editors, and they will help us with that. So go ahead and let's change out to our home directory. So here I am right at the tilde. I'm actually already there. That's helpful. And we're going to open up our bash rc config file. So that's the thing that helps run the commands. Let's do that. And it's going to put us in vi, and I am assuming it will help us do what we need to do. So you should see this beautiful file that tells you what's happening. So let's see if I understand some of these things that are happening. It looks like I don't, but I can tell you for sure these are just the comments that tell you what these things are. And I'm definitely not going to do anything there. But if you wanted to put more information in this file, if you want to put another comment, you would precede it with the hash sign. Otherwise, anything you put without a hash sign is going to be used when your terminal is working because it's expecting that information. So like if you look down here towards the bottom, there's a command you can uncomment to use. So it says, looks like non-text input files. You can use this to help you with that. So some of the things there, and you could put more things in here if you know what you want to add. So let's see if it has us do anything. Looks like it just says we want you to see it. So in this case, it's asking us this WQ is write quit. And we didn't change anything, but it is the easiest way to get back out. So we're going to go back here, hit escape on your keyboard. And then, so that gets you to the place where you can now hit colon to be able to issue those commands. This is really important. I used to forget it all the time. So hit escape and then hit the colon. It doesn't just show up for you. Type WQ, so write and quit. Write no changes, but write them. Q to quit. It's going to take you right out of that file. So if you do change that and you do the right, if you put, like, let's say you added a comment to that file, using WQ will write that additional comment in and save it and quit out of editing the file. And you can look online. Like I said, I usually use Nano when I do this sort of thing because it seems pretty friendly. It gives you a nice little bar of commands. And I'm like, that's the command I wanted to use. And I like to have references. So there's options. You can take a look at those on your own time. We're going to go ahead and test our understanding. And I'll switch back. And if you want to put the answer in the chat, I'll switch back here. So we have the 3 basic ways to interact. So what do we think those are? Or you can also unmute. Any thoughts for that? Otherwise, you're going to make me guess. All right, I see console, client libraries, and command line. All right, let's try those. So we have console, command line, client libraries. How'd we do? Perfect score. Look at that. That's pretty easy.
Woohoo!
Yay! We got all the way done. So important, you need to end the lab, actually end the lab so it gives you the credit. And you're going to submit the lab. If you got all the way done, you got your 100 of 100 over here on the right-hand side, go ahead and hit submit. And it does ask you to do a rating. Today I'll put a comment. We had fun. Apparently I have to cancel because I already finished this lab, but you will hit submit. And that's all there is to it. You can go ahead, any of your windows or tabs that you have open, just click out of them because when you ended the lab, you ended your access for that student account. And that's all there is to it. If you were to go back out, yay, look, I got some happy confetti. Again, I've done this particular quest, but you will now see a green check mark here. And I think, Jeff, you can confirm this, but I believe then they get switched over to the monthly subscription because they finished one.
Yeah, as soon as, if you didn't have a monthly subscription yet, as soon as you finish one lab, then the next time you reload Quick Labs, then it'll say monthly subscription instead of using those credits. It starts you off with 5 credits on this quest, so you could actually do a bunch of the labs. But as soon as you get any one, then boom, the next time you load Quick Labs. So if you don't see it now, just go to the address bar, click in there, and just hit enter, and it'll reload that page, right? And it'll then show up. But don't do that until you've quit, like ended lab. Otherwise, you'll lose the whole progress we just did.
Right. Yep. So thank you for letting me walk you through that. And thank you for the patience on the things I couldn't remember. And I'm going to figure out how to scroll before the next session. So just ask me in the chat next Wednesday. I will know by then.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So next up, let's see how people are feeling, how people are doing. Are people done? Like, hit that caps lock, type in done, and then let's all hit enter at the same time. So I'm going to write in there done. I'm going to hit caps lock. I'm going to type in done. And then let's go like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just all hit enter all at the same time, and then boom, we got a big line of done. Oh, gosh, you guys are great. All right. So also there's a prize for the person who did this lab the third best. So just let me know. I'm teasing, of course. Okay, so good job, everybody that made it. And if you didn't make it, don't worry. You get 5. You can do each lab 5 times. So you can always go back and retry it. Now, next up, we've got Noel.
I said Dune.
All right. People are doing, yeah, people do, oh, Dune. Dune.
Yeah.
All right. Great job. And thank you, Kristen, for leading that. Now, Elaine is going to do the next one, and that's about Kubernetes, and it's Kubernetes Engine.
So we're going to start off with the Kubernetes Engine. Just a quick refresher. So as programmers, we constantly need a platform to host our code for deployment. And the main problem is that it's always like on this laptop or on this machine, your code runs well, but on another machine, your code, well, it's faulty, mostly because of the versioning of some dependencies or some libraries and packages that you guys may have. So to make sure that our code can be run on any platform, we want to make sure that the language and the library versions, operating system, dependencies to be installed, etc., are the same. So one way to do that is actually by containerization. So a famous framework for that is actually Docker, and it's frequently paired with Kubernetes, even though Kubernetes, you can actually run it on its own. So basically, Docker containerizes your app while Kubernetes manages it at runtime, and that's the whole difference between Docker and Kubernetes, since Noel did mention earlier. And before we go ahead and dive into the lab, I just wanted to go ahead and introduce some terms that we will at while going through the lab. So basically, let's start off by looking at the hardware needed for Kubernetes. So we have Node, which is it represents a single machine. It's equivalent to a compute engine virtual machine, actually. And a cluster is basically a pool of nodes, and its main purpose is to handle distribution of work to its respective worker nodes or its compute engine instances. And persistent volumes, so the main idea of Kubernetes is to have it take care of the work distribution. That means that data will be shifted around the nodes to actually store set data for your app. Kubernetes uses persistent volumes to store the data needed for the entire cluster. And looking at the software itself, Kubernetes packages programs into Linux containers where we specify its image. And we actually looked a little bit at images in last week. I could go ahead and just share this link. I'm going to drop this link in there in the chat. Basically, this is the library of images that's already pre-built and commonly used by all programmers. And let's look at pods. It's basically it's a unit of replication where it executes containers, whereby containers in the same pod will share the same resources and local network. But it's always a good practice to just limit the number of containers per pod, just to make sure that while scaling up your pods, it doesn't cause unnecessary costs. For deployments is where the automation part of Kubernetes can be seen quite obviously, such that deployments handle the number of pods to spin up, as well as recreation of pods if a pod dies. And ingress is basically a channel of communication to allow external traffic to an application. And in our context, we'll be using load balancer to actually allow that external traffic to our application. All right, I'll go ahead and look at the lab as of now. Give me a second. All right, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just hit Start Lab, and that's cool. Okay, opening this in an incognito window. There we go. And just signing in as usual. There we go. And accept. I'm just going to resize this so it's easier for all of us to see. Let's see. Okay. All right, now just looking at the overview of our lab for today, we're going to go ahead and in this lab we'll be able to, oh, there we go. I'll just skip here. We're going to go ahead and create a Gke cluster or Google Kubernetes Engine cluster, get authentication credentials for the cluster, deploy the app, and then deleting the cluster. All right, so we're going to start off with setting a default compute zone. So to set a default compute zone, we're going to go ahead and start a session in the Cloud Shell. And in our context, we're only going to go ahead and look at US Central 1A as the zone and US Central 1 as the region. Okay. I'm going to copy this, I'm going to paste it, and it's going to set the zone for us. Then again, if you wanted to set a region, it's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be Gcloud config set compute region. And then you're going to specify your region. Next, let's go ahead and look at creating a Gke cluster. So a cluster consists of at least one cluster master machine and multiple worker machines called nodes. And nodes are basically, like I said, compute engine virtual machine VM instances that run the Kubernetes processes necessary to make them part of the cluster. And specifically, cluster names must start with a letter and end with an alphanumeric and cannot be longer than 40 characters. So create a cluster, we're going to run the following command, replacing cluster name with the name you choose for a cluster, for example, my cluster. And as Kristen mentioned earlier, I like to always just do Gcloud container clusters and then a help flag just to see what I could actually do with it. So this is the man page for Gcloud containers, basically. And you could go ahead and see what flags you could use and basically what command you're supposed to type in. So the command would basically be something like create or things like that. Okay, command C. Oh, wait. Outbreak shift. Control C. Okay, I typed Control C to escape the man page, just so you know. I'm gonna go ahead and create a cluster now. So I'm gonna say Gcloud. Oh, what did happen? I'm gonna open. All right, let me go ahead and set my zone again. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and create a cluster. So it's gonna be Gcloud container clusters create. To be more specific on what you could do with the create function, you could go ahead and add the help flag after create. But now we know that we only want to name it. So we're just going to go ahead and create. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say Gke cluster. All right. Okay. So it's going to go ahead and create a cluster for us. And then, oh, this is just a warning message in case you wanted to create a VPC native or not a VPC native mode for cluster creation. Yeah. So we're just gonna wait. And then at the same time, once it's done, you should be able to see the details of your clusters. So it's gonna be the name, your location, version, IP address, machine type, node version, and the number of nodes and its status. Let's see, you can go ahead and click on Kubernetes Engine and you could actually see it spinning up. And you see that we have 3 nodes, nothing so far, status is still loading. If you click on it, you could actually look at it in more depth. So you could see its cluster basics, automation, networking, security, and all that. And you can look at the nodes on its own, the pools, the nodes itself, and storage, persistent volume, storage classes. Logs is just basically to keep track of the process of your cluster. Okay, it's taking a while, but let's go ahead and look at the next step. We're gonna go ahead and get authentication credentials for the cluster after creating it. So it's gonna be Gcloud container clusters get credentials. As for a list of commands that you could do, let's do a quick search if we could get it. Gcloud container clusters commands. Okay. All right, so we could go ahead and just do a quick search. Google Cloud has great documentation on all their services and the commands that you could use. And there's always a Gcloud equivalent command line, commands in the documentation. So we could describe, we could view our clusters, we could upgrade it, we could actually create it and all of that. It's all in here. I could go ahead and just drop this in the chat. Y'all could take a look. Yeah, it's really taking its time here. Let's see. Yeah. And then after authenticating our cluster, we're gonna go ahead and deploy an application to the cluster. Specifically, we're gonna use a predefined or pre-built application called Hello App. No coding is necessary because they've actually built our app for us, and we're just gonna go ahead and deploy it to Kubernetes. All right, my cluster has successfully been spun up. We've got all this the details of our cluster out here. Let's see, we could also look at it on Kubernetes Engine. We're gonna go back, you're gonna see in our logs, we have all of these, which is basically the process of spinning up the cluster. If I hit clusters, I could see my cluster right there. Cool, all right. And then any actions, oh yeah, no. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get authentication credentials for the cluster. So let's go ahead and do Gcloud container clusters get credentials. And I'm gonna type in my own cluster name. So you guys have to type in the cluster name of, well, the cluster name that you guys specified. So it's gonna be Gke cluster. There you go. And I'm gonna hit enter. So it was able to fetch the endpoint and authentication data, and our entry has been given to us to the cluster. So right now we're just gonna go ahead and deploy an application to the cluster. And let's go ahead and look at containerized application real quick as a quick little refresher. There we go. So basically, do we have that here? Okay. So basically, we're just going to go ahead and containerize our application and just specify the versionings of the nodes, the versioning of the libraries and our app itself, and the packages that has to be downloaded before deployment of the app and things like that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and create the new deployment of Hello Server from the Hello App container image. And we're gonna go ahead and run the following Kubernetes create command. And then before I do that, let's go ahead and look at its command line. Do I have it here? If you go ahead and just type in kubectl GCP, it should just pop up. All right. Okay. Gke Cluster. Yeah, we have here. There's actually line by line instructions on how to create the cluster, deploy it, and things like that. So make sure to check this out if you wanted to. And we're gonna go ahead and continue with our steps. All right, so it's gonna be kubectl create deployment, hello server, and the flag is gonna be this is the image that we want to use, and the image can actually be found on Google Samples. Let's see. I'll go and copy this. I'm gonna type that out, paste it, and enter. So basically, this is gonna be the name of your deployment, and this is the image that you're gonna use, or the specific version and your directory of your image. And if you go ahead and type in kubectl create deployment help, it's actually gonna tell you the same thing. Where is that? Okay. Yeah, so over here we have usage, and then the command kubectl create deployment, the name, the image, and all these are required, so you have to type it in. And then anything with command or arguments or anything with this flag is just basically optional. Oops, I did not mean to do that. All right. Okay, if you go ahead and see that your deployment has been created, then you are able to continue with that. So over here it says this Kubernetes command creates a deployment object that represents Hello Server. In this case, image flag specifies a container image to deploy, and the command pulls the example image from a container registry bucket. Indicates
What if it doesn't work? Like what if we're not this far yet? I mean, like what do we do if in the chat there was someone whose cluster was still taking a bit to create? Like what should people do?
You're just gonna go ahead and go through the steps on Quick Labs. I'm basically just following the steps as well. So after your cluster has been spun up, you're just gonna go ahead and get Authentication Credentials, and then you're gonna go ahead and create the deployment, and then just deploy the app and delete the cluster. Right. See that Michelle just had her cluster created. Let's see. So Michelle, you just want to go ahead and follow through the steps, and you're going to go ahead and get the authentication credentials, and then you're just going to deploy the app to the cluster. All right. Once you're done with that, you're just going to go ahead and check your progress. And then system assessment completed, and it says 50 out of 100, which is exactly what we want. Great. So next, we're going to go ahead and create a Kubernetes, which is a Kubernetes resource that lets you expose your application to external traffic, basically ingress and run the following kubectl expose command. And you see that I did mention at the start that we're going to go ahead and use a load balancer type to expose our deployment onto port 8080, basically. All right, so in this command, port specifies the port that the container exposes, and type equals load balancer creates a compute engine load balancer for your container. And you should have an expected output of service and then your deployment name exposed. Right, I'm gonna go ahead and start doing this. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and expose our deployment real quick. Before that, we could go ahead and just view our cluster. Where is that? Let's see. Oh, okay. That's not it. All right, never mind. View. I'm gonna go ahead and try to view Gke deployment command line. Let's see. Deploy. Oh, that's just automating. That's not it. All right. If I find the link, I'll go ahead and drop in the chat later on. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and expose it right now. So it's gonna be kubectl expose deployment hello server, which is the name of our deployment. The type is gonna be load balancer, and it's gonna be on port 8080. Let's hit enter. All right, it says expose, but it does take a while to actually have the process go through. So if we go ahead and inspect the service by kubectl get service, it might take a while for it to actually show up. You can see it over here that it just says pending, and there's like no number basically. So we're just gonna go ahead and just keep running this, or just wait a minute and you'll get the external IP address. So once it's successfully exposed, you could actually see the IP address from in the expected output after saying kubectl get service. And then from here, afterwards, we're just gonna go ahead and look at our app and see it on port 8080 basically. Just gonna run this again. All right, I have my external IP out. Did you guys manage to get to this step? If you guys did, just go ahead and drop it in the chat. If you didn't, drop it in the chat as well. Let's see. Okay. All right, got it. I see that there's at least 3 that we're able to get to this step. And let's just go ahead and look at our app. So there are a few ways to do this. First is to just manually type it out HTTP, replacing external IP with your external IP, or you could just go ahead and hit web preview on port 8080. It should work fine. Oh, probably didn't work fine just because I have another service running on that port. Well, that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and just manually do this, I guess. HTTP, and then port 8080. Okay, so we have our app, which is just to say hello world, the version, and the host name. And this is only available on our local machine, just so you know. And let's go ahead and hit check my progress. And we were able to complete our assessment. We have 75 so far. The last step we've got to do is just to delete the cluster. So to delete the cluster, just go ahead and say Gcloud container clusters delete, and then your cluster name, hello server. Oh, my cluster name is Gke Cluster. Yes. All right. Okay, so basically, to look at your deployment, I did mention earlier, if you wanted to view your deployments, it's nodes and the pods, not nodes, it's pods. Basically, you're gonna go ahead and run this command, Kubectl describe deployments. And if you wanted to be more specific, there's other flags you could use and other functions to type in. But yeah, oh, I missed it. There we go. So we have describe, file name, and then, or you could just say, over here we have describe the nodes specifically that you're trying to look for, the pods, or describe all pods. And we have, if you've got your pods under a specific label, you could say describe pods by label and all of that. Okay, I'll go ahead and paste that in the chat real quick. Okay, 7 minutes left, no biggie. Right, it's still working, and if we go ahead and hit refresh on our Kubernetes engine, shows a little Kubernetes cluster is being deleted. And if we actually go ahead and type in view Kubernetes cluster. Okay, we have a Kubectl cheat sheet too if you guys want it. Let me drop that in the chat too. Whenever I program or just use command line or like shell or a console, I would always have a bunch of tabs open just to look at documentation to help me for sure. I don't think it's possible to remember all of these commands. All right, let's see. We've got this context. We just want to look at our cluster first. It's probably like the describe cluster, maybe. Yeah, just waiting on it still. Let's see, 6 minutes. Will it get deleted in time? Hopefully. How are you guys doing in terms of the lab? Scaling, deleting, running pods. Okay, we've got Kubectl logs, and you can check your deployment pod logs, basically see if your pods are running, see if they're dead, which one's spinning up, which one's being rescaled and things like that. Okay, we have the expected output of deleted, and then your cluster. If we go ahead and look at Kubernetes, we have nothing here. Let's see. We could go ahead and check our progress real quick. Great. I've been watching you. Great job, guys. All right, you should be able to get 100 out of 100. And that's basically the basics of Kubernetes in GCP. But if you wanted to explore more, there's definitely a lot of resources on Quick Labs. To use your monthly subscription, just look at Kubernetes specific, get a lot of details from there. But yeah, great job, guys. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end lab. Wait, before that, I want to go ahead and see if I can check out cluster info. All right, if we go ahead and type in Gcloud cluster info, let's see what that does. Oh, I forgot if there's, oh yeah, there is. Full done, refused. Oh, cool. All right, because we deleted a cluster, so it's not on the port 8080 anymore, and we're not able to actually access the cluster on that port. That makes sense. Let's see. Deploy. Oh, okay, we could go ahead and check out if we have any nodes and all of that. Let's see. Let's go here. There's also services in namespace. Okay, if we go ahead and say vector get service again, we shouldn't have anything. Yep, we have our pod disabled too. Cool, I'll go ahead and end lab just because it's at 3 minutes already. Let's hit submit. Go ahead and just leave comments if you want it. Get rated if you want it, and I'm just gonna hit submit. All right. Good job, guys.
Good job. Thank you so much, Elaine. You did a great job, especially showing people that Kubernetes stuff before starting the lab to make it a little easier. Thanks again for attending the School of Cloud. Now check out some of our other videos, and see you back next time.